oil
a
price started
sustainable basket
fluctuating
for ourselves.
and becoming uncertain.
That is our
over the last
decision to make.
decade.
And we are not making these decisions on the basis that somebody's prepared to give us money. Somebody's prepared to give us money which will allow us to create value and assets amongst
diversification
ourselves
of the country's economy as the only viable way to survive the current trend of global economic uncertainty,
yes,
occasioned on the
we
one
have
hand by
strong
the
relations with
volatility
China.
of
I
oil
was
price,
there last September.
as well as now the latest revelation by the
Paid a
Department of
state
Petroleum
visit there, and on
Resources.
top of it
Of
also
course, indeed,
took part
Kingsley,
in
the agricultural
FOCAC in
sector
Beijing.
is suggested
I found it
as
very
a possible
constructive
option
experience, first
for
of all, to see what was
diversifying
going on
the
in
Nigerian
China itself. I
economy.
hadn't been there
And
for over 10
of
years.
course, the present
And
administration
discovered
has
that
made
this
some
single-minded
appreciable strides
determination
in rice production.
to
And
leave
many
the
are
old
still
China
in doubt
behind
of
and
how
go
the growth
towards
in rice
a new
production
future
can be
is one that I found
replicated,
very admirable.
for other
And it is
cash
one that I'd
crops.
like to have
All right, Kira,
replicated
you
in
mentioned
my country
agriculture
and
as
on our
one
continent.
of the
A
sources of
single-minded
diversifying
focus.
the economy,
We're
but
leaving the
obviously,
old Africa
as the
behind
conversation
for a
goes on
new
today,
Africa
you'll
of
definitely
growth and
infuse
prosperity.
technology
I saw
into
that
it.
in China.
Exactly,
and
and
it inspired
that's
me a lot.
inevitable.
That's right. Now, but the proverbial rainy day, as you said, is looming. And so
We have
what are
time
the
for one more.
alternatives to oil, and how sustainable is Nigeria's economic
And it is one that I'd
diversification
like to have
blueprint?
replicated in my
Is it
country
working or is it
and on our
realistic?
continent. A
And what are the
single-minded
economic
focus
potentials of
that we're
Nigeria's
leaving the old
unproven
Africa
gas
behind
reserves,
for a
which
new
are
Africa
some
of
200
growth and
trillion
prosperity.
cubic feet?
I saw that
and
in China,
unproven
and it
reserves
inspired me a lot.
estimated at 600 trillion cubic feet. Now, that, of course, talking about gas,
We have time for
introduces
one
new
more
dimensions to the
question. I'm going to come to
conversation,
this side.
because you can
Please
deal with
introduce
crude
yourself
oil on the one hand and also
Hi,
deal with gas.
birthday
on
blessings
the
to
other
you,
hand.
His
So what are
Excellency.
the
My name is
certainties
Shahara
or
Jackson, and
uncertainties
I am a
that the
first-year
country needs
doctoral
to
student
plan
at the
for
School of
as,
Education.
the oil markets continue to show their uncertainties?
Yes, not just uncertainty, but they're fluctuating at every instance. Now, very pertinent questions we have raised, Kingsley, and we have assembled a panel of guests that will respond to these questions and more on Good Morning Nigeria today as we discuss the topic, Nigeria after oil. It's good to have you join us this morning, of course, the 24th day of February 2020. My name is Kirian Umayo.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. Kirian, it's a pretty windy morning today in Abuja.
Oh, yes. It
I
started
don't know
as early as 5 a.m.
Yes, it's the winds have been whistling. We're not quite sure what's playing out.
No, rain is on its way.
It's still early. It's still early to have a rain. So even though in the afternoon, we expect temperatures to notch up to 37, 38 degrees on some occasions. I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Kirian to also welcome you to the program, reaching you as always live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are reaching you from the nation's capital, Abuja. And as always, we have our complimentary segments of the program. And these are Newspaper Review, Business, and if we have the time, obviously, we'll talk about sports. You saw what happened earlier hours of yesterday.
It was an explosive encounter.
Big time, big time. You couldn't have seen, a better heavyweight match, in recent years. Tyson Fury taking out Deontay Wilder in the 7th round, battered him, of course, throughout the entire.
After boasting he was going to do that.
That's right.
24 hours before time.
That's right. In the meantime, of course, let's listen to the highlights of the morning news. And here is Nolin Abel Ahmed. Nolin, it doesn't appear as if you are a boxing fan anyway, so let's just leave you out of that.
Of course, Kingsley, I am.
Oh,
all right, good morning to you and good morning to you, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari has condemned Boko Haram attack on Garkida in Adamawa State, extending his sympathy to families of victims. In a statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, the President assures that no part of Nigeria will be abandoned to their fate and describes the attacks of soft targets by the terrorists as obvious signs of frustration, expressing confidence that the terrorists will continue to face the combined power of the military until they give up their mistaken ways. President Buhari says, since the coming of his administration, Boko Haram's ability to invade and occupy Nigerian territories, let alone be able to hoist their flags, had been frustrated. He asserts that in the coming weeks, Nigerians will witness an aggressive campaign to rout Boko Haram once and for all. Similarly, an attack by persons suspected to be Boko Haram terrorists on the peaceful town of Garkida in Gombe local government area of Adamawa State has been thwarted by troops of 232 Battalion of the 23 Armored Brigade, Operation Lafia Dole. A press release by the Assistant Director, Army Public Relations, 23 Brigade, Yola, Major Haruna Mohammed Sani, indicates that the terrorists besieged the town in gun trucks and a motorcycle, setting some buildings ablaze and causing unrest within the community before they were intercepted by the troops, leading to the elimination of several of the attackers as others withdrew wounded. Regrettably, one gallant soldier paid the supreme price, while another soldier who was wounded in action is responding to treatment in a military medical facility. Meanwhile, normalcy has since returned in Garkida town in Gombe local government area of Adamawa State after the attack by insurgents. Governor Amadou Umaru Fintri, who visited Garkida on a fact-finding mission, pledged government's commitment towards securing lives and property.
We will further reinforce this place with the military. We will recruit more vigilantes and empower them for them to give support to the military. But in the interim, we will send support, particularly palliative, to those affected. The building of the community will also commence immediately.
We have the capacities to stand against them, and that's why we continue to solicit and inform the locals to continue to give us information.
In other news, Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed says the federal government is targeting about $1 billion annually from artisanal mining if the sector is given the desired attention and support. The minister stated this in an interview ahead of the formal flag-off of the program in Yauri, Kebbi State.
And what this means that we are going to register all artisanal miners in Nigeria, take their biometrics, take their photographs, get their addresses, and then the federal government will now support them in the mining industry. This is the best way to eradicate illegal miners. And then whatever gold with the mine will be bought by the central bank. And we are very confident that with this new initiative, we are going to be able to probably make over $1 billion alone in gold.
Minister of State for Works and Housing Abubakar Aliyu has expressed displeasure and concern over the slow pace of work at the Section 1 of Kano Maiduguri dualization project by the contracting firm, despite funds being released to complete the road infrastructure. The minister, who paid an unscheduled visit to the site, said federal government will not take it lightly.
I want to urge them to push this work, because this road is very, very important to the people here and to the nation, because it's a major road linking Kano to Maiduguri. And the Gaya Wudil section, they are not doing well there. So I have directed that they should increase men and machine on this stretch so that they link up Gaya and Wudil before continuing other areas. At the beginning of the project towards Wudil, they have done about 10 kilometers. They have finished complete 100%, and I commended them for that because they have done very well.
The Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, NAMA, has inaugurated its newly installed Category 3 Instrument Landing System ILS at Runway 18 Right Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, as well as Runway 22 at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. Also inaugurated is the newly installed Doppler, a very high-frequency omnidirectional radio range DVOR in Lagos. This is in addition to the routine flight calibration, which has been successfully carried out on runway 18 in Lagos. A statement by Director Public Affairs of the Ministry of Aviation, James O'Dowdu, indicates that calibration of navigational aids in other locations across the country is in progress. That's the news for now. Good morning. Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kiran after this break. Thank you for watching.
Are you aware that your perfect family may be under threat by germs? Germs can cause infectious diseases like diarrhea, typhoid, and flu. These infectious diseases are amongst the biggest killers of adults and children. In Nigeria, tens of thousands of children under the age of 5 have died due to diarrhea caused by germs, which could easily have been prevented. These illness-causing germs are everywhere. Dirty surfaces, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes, in unclean bathing water. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 capsule. For surface cleaning, for first aid, for your laundry, in your bathing water, and to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure.
Hi, my name is Miguel from AboutErrors.net. In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to remote access a Windows 10 PC. To remote access a PC, you will need to create a user with a password or add a password to a current user. Now to do that, head over to Control Panel. Under View By, select Small Icons, User Accounts, Manage Another Account, and here you can add a new user or just select the current user and add a password to that user. Create a password and enter a new password. Once you're done with this, we will need to get the IP address of this PC. Done. Now, on your keyboard, press the Windows key plus R. It'll open the Run window, and then type CMD to open the command prompt. Done. Now, on your keyboard, press the Windows key plus R. It'll open the Run window, and then type CMD to open the command prompt. And click OK. Here type IP config. Press enter. It'll provide you with the IP address and default gateway IP. Write it down because we're going to use it in the future. Once we're done, close the command prompt. Now right click this PC, Properties.
Do great things at home and abroad. As I've been saying, without the proper footing abroad,
here, click on Remote Settings from the left, and checkmark on the remote desktop, allow remote connection to this computer, and uncheck allow connections only from computer running remote desktop with network level authentication. This would just complicate things. Now, if you want to add a user, just click on Select Users, click Add. Say you want to add someone other than the administrator, you can add it here, but by default, the administrator is enabled for remote desktop. So I'm going to cancel here.
And this is the production outlet where we do about 4,000 to 5,000 births per day. With the closure
and
of
apply the settings. This PC is fully set up for remote desktop connection. Now what we need to do is remote access to that PC from a computer in the network or LAN. That way, if we try connecting from the WAN or outside the network, if it gives us any problems, we can isolate it to the router's firewall or router. I'll be accessing the Windows 10 remote PC from another Windows 10 within the LAN. All I need to do is click on Start, Remote, and then click on Remote Desktop from the results, and here type the local IP address, which is 10.0.0.10, and connect. Enter the remote username and password. Remember my credentials. Okay.
On the NTA network. service.
Now here,
now, on business news,
click on
Central
yes.
Bank of Nigeria clarifies operation of domiciliary accounts.
Done. We have successfully remote desktop a Windows 10 PC within the network or LAN. Now, we need to try to remote desktop this same PC from the WAN or outside the network. For this, we will need to configure the router or router firewall to enable port 3389. Now, from that same PC that you're going to remote access the Windows 10 PC, open Microsoft Edge and here type what is my IP address, and it'll provide you with your WAN IP address, or you can go to iplocation.net/find IP address, just like you see it here. I'll put the link in the description box. It'll provide you with the WAN IP address. Write it down because we're going to use it in the future. Once done, in Microsoft Edge, enter in the search http:// and the gateway IP address to log in to your router. In this case, I don't have a router, I have the ISP modem. It also requires a username and password. Once there, locate port forwarding. It should be somewhere in the firewall in your case. Here, make sure that port forwarding is enabled and add a service. Name the service. I'll name it RDP, Remote Desktop. The server IP address is 10.0.0.10. Service type, TCP and UDP. And the starting port and ending port is 3389. Once you're done,
thank you very much,
once there, locate port forwarding with the WAN IP address, with your WAN IP address, or you can go to iplocation.net/find IP address, just like you see it here. I'll put the link in the description box. It'll provide you with the WAN IP address. Write it down because we're going to use it in the future. Once done, in Microsoft Edge, enter in the search http:// and the gateway IP address to log in to your router. In this case, I don't have a router, I have the ISP modem. It also requires a username and password. Once there, locate port forwarding. It should be somewhere in the firewall in your case. Here, make sure that port forwarding is enabled and add a service. Name the service. I'll name it RDP, Remote Desktop. The server IP address is 10.0.0.10. Service type, TCP and UDP. And the starting port and ending port is 3389. Once you're done, click on Add. Perfect. Now my router is configured to enable Remote Desktop through the firewall. Now, instead of using the local IP address, try using the WAN IP address. Once you're done, click on Connect, enter the remote username and password, remember my credentials, and click OK, and you should be able to remote access that PC from outside the network or LAN.
To look for new moon. That's on page 12. Catholics to wear black on Ash Wednesday over insecurity. Federal government incapable of protecting Nigerians, declares bishops. Well, it's on page 40. Yeah, so that's all about it on Daily Sun Super for the front page headlines.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation newspaper above the nameplate says begging, not Islamic, says Emir Sanusi, and ruler cautions on Almajiri. Details on page 37. Ex-Naval director forfeits 500 million naira to federal government, and court okays action. Details on page 10. Kwankwanso ignorant of legal procedure as Kano tackles as governor. That's on page 43. Below the name flag, CBN sets rules for domiciliary account. NEC, that's the Electricity Regulatory Commission, begins consultation on new electricity tariff. Inside the paper in further detail on pages 41 and 37, Amotekun, not for secession. My plans for Bayelsa by Miracle Governor Diri. Miracle Governor, of course, is putting quotes there. Then the photographs there on the front page say Boko Haram burns churches as Buhari orders aggressive campaign. Those are the burnt-out structures. One to the extreme left is the EYN church burned down by insurgents in Garkida. That was at the weekend. Another building razed by Boko Haram insurgents, and a Living Faith church also touched by the insurgents in Garkida. Governors upset by excess crude account depletion. With Ryder talks on insecurity and reconciliation of oil receipts for next Thursday's meeting. And then Supreme Court to hear APC's request
to a current user. Now to do that, head over to Control Panel.
That's this week. Details on page 37.
Under View By, select small icons,
invasion of Garkida last Friday
user accounts.
Sergeant Boko Haram. President Muhammadu Buhari says that the terrorist Boko Haram will continue to face the combined power of our military until they give up their mistaken ways. He was reacting and sympathizing with persons in Garkida who saw 7 trucks of insurgents and motorcycles invading the town on Friday. Soldiers of 232 Battalion were into there and routed out the insurgents, killing many of them and many of them sustaining injuries. 2 of our Confederate soldiers lost their lives in the battle. Meanwhile, the president says that in no distant future, Boko Haram will be decimated and we'll see an end of them in weeks coming. Soldiers of 32 Brigade are currently patrolling Garkida to sustain their vigilance. They had entered the town, burned churches, burned private homes, burned markets, and were looting, looking for food to take to their area. So far, there has not been any pronouncement from Amnesty. They've not even indicated what their satellite imagery is reading from the invasion from Garkida. It will be recalled that Amnesty International have reported about a satellite imagery and what it saw on villages along Maiduguri Damaturu Road when there was recent attack and they alleged that soldiers had ransacked the villages.
Manage another account
has denied that allegation. The Supreme Court
and here you can add a new user or just select the current user and add a password to that user.
Governorship election of February 13th that was overruled.
Create a password
and for which
and enter a new password.
The APC victory was overturned for the People Democratic Party.
Once you're done with this, we will need to get
which was filed
the IP address of this PC.
To be held this Wednesday. Also,
done.
At the Supreme
Now,
Court, it will be held at
on your keyboard, press the Windows key plus R. It'll open the run window, and then type CMD to open the command prompt,
of all the APC
and click OK.
In the 2019 election
here type
in
IP config, press enter.
Of the victory of,
it'll provide you with the IP address.
Governor of Imo State. So this week is very critical for the review of those 3 cases at the hearing at the Apex Court.
Yes, Nigerians are waiting so until that happens. We don't know the direction the Supreme Court is going to take.
I was wondering, I mean, did the Supreme Court registry change the date of the hearing? I thought they said the hearing would take place on the 2nd of March. Earlier. Yeah, 2nd of March. That's for the Imo case. Yes, okay. Yes. So we're going to take place on the 2nd of March. So we'll see how those things play out. But this report about the CBN setting rules for domiciliary account, they said, well, the Corporate Affairs Communications Director of the CBN made a clarification. I think it needs to make further clarification because the clarification, as reported, doesn't suffice. Because, I mean, the gravamen, that's to say the pith of what is being reported here is as follows. It says that only electronic fund transfers into domiciliary accounts can be transferred from such accounts, while cash deposits into such accounts can only be withdrawn in cash also. So there are 2 modes of feeding domiciliary accounts.
Yes.
Either you pay cash into it or by electronic transfer. Now, so which electronic transfer is it referring to? Is it electronic transfer, say you go to a bureau de change operator, who makes a transfer from his own account electronically into a domiciliary account, or you just buy cash from him, dollars or pounds or euro, and then you go and pay. That's cash. Domiciliary, or is it when you earn dollars or somebody sends money to you from abroad that will be regarded solely as electronic transfer, funds transfer? That clarification is necessary.
It's required. My simple understanding of what the clarification is that domiciliary account is a foreign currency account, either in dollars or pounds sterling or whatever. Now, my understanding of it simply is that if you had paid foreign currency into that account physically, you can withdraw physically. You can withdraw by electronic transfer. If, however,
and default
you
gateway
paid funds
IP.
into the account by means
Write
of
it down
electronic
because we're going to use it in the
same
future.
means to withdraw from that account.
Once we're done, close the command prompt. Now right-click this PC.
It can be very ambiguous.
It's a
properties.
little bit confusing. It's a little bit confusing, and one would also like to ask why the sudden change. Is it a regulatory measure or something? And what does he intend to achieve by so doing? Because if you bring about such changes, it is believe that it's going to yield a result. So what is the target? What is the target of central bank? By so what is the objective,
what is the purpose of a domiciliary account? Because here it's saying, let me take it again. I'm sure that this
here, click on remote settings from the left
of this, but it says
and check mark on the remote
fund transfer into domiciliary account can be transferred from such accounts. Can be transferred. What is the purpose of maintaining a domiciliary account? And how do you feed a domiciliary account? One, by electronic fund transfer. Two, by cash. So it is not as if you don't have a transaction, assuming you have a transaction, you need to wire the money to a designated account outside of the shores of this country, and you had fed the account with cash. And what he's saying is that that transaction is not possible.
I think that what the central bank is striving at is to ensure that we do not transact business within Nigeria in foreign currency. That's another angle to it. Because if you have to make payments via electronic transfer locally, you're buying something, you want to pay with dollars or euro, as case maybe. I think that's what they're trying to avoid. So you don't transact.
No, here, let's have a simple. I want to order books, for instance, from Amazon or some other books. I didn't say a book. That's right. And the books probably worth, just again, by way of example, $300 or $500. And I had money in my domiciliary account, with a part of it cash, part of it maybe electronic transfer. And I said, okay, I want to transfer $300 or $350 to Amazon to complete that particular transaction. From what I'm reading now, it appears that, okay, assuming I had $200 in cash, and then maybe the balance of $100
here,
electronic funds transfer,
click on
I
remote
will not
settings
be in a position to wholly transfer $300 to Amazon to enable me to buy the books.
Yes. From what I've read, that is interpretation. That's what I'm saying. They want to avoid internal transaction in Nigeria with foreign currency. That's what I think.
The central bank must have intent, but from the example Kingsley has given, it simply means that since that money you have in your domiciliary account, if you had paid in by cash, then your transaction has to go by cash. If it is by electronic transfer, similarly,
and check mark on the remote desktop allow remote connection to this computer, and uncheck allow connections only from computer running remote desktop with network level authentication. This would just complicate things. Now if you want to add a user, just click on select users, click add.
The police are giving authority to the Commissioner of Police. The contention now is that the Commissioner of Police does not have authority unless he gets orders from headquarters in Abuja, and therefore that is becoming an obstacle. I think it's part of the politics, because look back, just about 3 years ago, kidnapping was a big problem in Lagos. You remember 2 secondary schools that had kidnappers visiting them. What did the governor do? He summoned his security council, put together a task force comprising the army, navy, military, and the police, and they were able to take the war to the den of the hideouts of the kidnappers, routed them, and up to today, that thing has gone down. They didn't have to necessarily refer to the headquarters. What I mean here is that a commissioner of police had command to tackle crime and criminality in his area of jurisdiction.
So are you saying
if it is beyond his control, he has area AIGs in the immediate combination of states for which he could call for support. If it goes beyond them, the governor has alternative. There's a brigade commander in every state.
The Lagos example.
So you want to add someone other than the administrator? You can add it here. But by default, the administrator
to be able to achieve that. He said
is enabled for remote desktop. So I'm going to cancel here.
And all of that. So does it require a governor to have direct control over the CP for that to happen?
And apply the settings. This PC is fully set up for remote desktop connection. Now what we need to do is remote access to that PC from a computer in the network or LAN. That way, if we try connecting from the WAN or outside the network, if it gives us any problems, we can isolate it to the router's firewall or router. I'll be accessing the Windows 10 remote PC from another Windows 10 within the LAN. All I need to do is click on Start, Remote, and then click on Remote Desktop from the results, and here type the local IP address, which is 10.0.0.10, and connect, enter the remote username and password. Remember my credentials, OK.
When they are given instructions by state governors, commissioners of police will say they want to revert to Abuja. Abuja is the first headquarters. This one, they will now say that, I don't know how they want to amend it, that governors will now appoint commissioners of police on the recommendation of first headquarters or the police service commission. It all depends on...
I think it's a constitutional matter. It's a constitutional matter because for a state governor to appoint a commissioner of police in the state, that means that he is in charge. He is in charge, in terms of giving directives to the CP. CP does not have any need again to make reference to, IGs or AIGs, as the case may be, to take action in that particular state. And that brings us to the issue of state police. Which, of course, because if a governor can appoint a CP, why not have a police of his own, as a state?
Well, I think almost invariably we'll get to that.
All right, editorials now. Blocking multinationals' $10 billion tax leakage. Now, with federal government expenditure on the rise, debt servicing gulping trillions of naira, and revenue generation erratic, it is not surprising that the Federal Inland Revenue Service has set its talk on blocking leakages in tax collection. In a belated initiative to expand revenue, the FIRS chairman, Mohammed Nami, says the organization will go after multinationals not fulfilling their tax obligations, which he currently estimates at billions of dollars. His statement on recovering the arrears is a familiar to refrain that does not have whatever. Let me take that again. Say his statement on recovering the arrears is a familiar terrain that does not offer much excitement. However, Nami should go the whole hog to achieve his target.
Well, the new chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Services has been going around the country on familiarization after assuming duty. And the concern has been that, yes, one of the areas that he intends to focus is multinationals who actually now are not meeting their tax obligations. And the editorial is saying that this should go beyond rhetorics, because in the past there have been such rhetorics, and therefore you require practical terms to ensure that such taxes that are outstanding are retrieved.
Do is click on Start, Remote, and then click on Remote Desktop from the results, and here type router's firewall or router. I'll be accessing the Windows 10 remote PC from another Windows 10 within the LAN. All I need to do is click on Start, Remote, and then click on Remote Desktop.
In deficit, and this is because of a shortfall from revenue to carry out the expenditure that is projected in the budget. Therefore, if we must move forward, then there is need to also ensure that every dime that is owed the federal government are retrieved. And it is now the challenge of the chairman, the new chairman, Mohammed Nami, to make good his threat that multinationals who own Nigeria will not be allowed to go free. They should use every possible means to recover every dime every dollar that is owed Malaysia.
Asking, is it really possible for a Nigerian company operating elsewhere across the globe to owe that country of taxes? Is it possible?
Well, it's possible to owe, but they will ensure that you regurgitate whatever you owe the government.
Exactly. Yes. So that's why I wanted, because of course from this text, it does mean that there's been in that fight for a long time.
Absolutely.
This is not the first time. It's been there. It's been there. So what will make a multinational not to pay taxes? And this multinational is still existing, operating, and functioning in Nigeria, and you're not paying tax. In countries like Sweden, the economy is based on tax. If you don't pay tax, you go to jail. There are no two ways about it. In Spain and many other European countries.
It's in countries where tax laws are rigorously enforced. That's the norm. I think sometimes, again, of course, the role of MNCs, multinational corporations, particularly in emerging economies or the so-called third world, where sometimes they operate virtually as parallel governments.
Yes.
Okay, so Kieran, that does it for us. I'm sure our readers will be interested in some of that stories inside the paper. Essay The Nation. Say NGOs ask court to halt plans by reps to buy 400 exotic cars.
And there's another report to that. Buying 400 exotic cars, there's also a vigilance to ensure that refurbished cars are not bought instead of the brand new cars.
Brand new ones.
And the money is going to which country now? Because what is the brand?
It's
going to a country now. I mean,
certainly it's not. It's not from Innocent.
Exactly.
It's not from Innocent.
It's going to.
Okay, Baya Toby, thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you too.
We'll see you again tomorrow. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll be dealing with Nigeria after oil, the role of economic diversification.
We'll be able to unite, irrespective of tribe, religion, and culture. So we keep preaching on love. That is the only binding force. Let us love ourselves, irrespective of where the person comes from.
You are about to witness the commencement of the most stimulating and compelling contest on television. This contest is only for the strong, the intelligent, and the talented. Get ready for the Unity Challenge reality TV show. Coming soon.
Every day.
Nestle, good food, good life.
As you know, kids' exam time is exam time for moms too. The child prepares intensely, so does the mom, taking care of every little thing. But germs can ruin it all. What if he falls ill on his exam day?
Every single day is important for kids. That's why they need Dettol soap. It protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday protection, everyday Dettol.
65 grams, now 150 naira.
New digital technologies have thrown up new opportunities for online news gathering, reporting and management. NTA TV College invites online reporters, journalists, public relations practitioners, multimedia producers and freelance reporters to a special 2-week intensive course on intermediate online news reporting skills. Take advantage of the course to upscale your skills in computer-assisted reporting, social media content production strategies, online media platforms for information dissemination and management. Date 2nd to 13th March 2020. Course fee 80,000 naira per participant, accommodation inclusive. Also running is a special 4-week intensive course on modern trends in broadcast media marketing. It is an essential course for the sales force in the broadcast media, in the public and private sector, to sharpen their skills and improve their capacities to deal with contemporary marketing challenges and competitors. Date 16th March to 9th April 2020. Course fee 100,000 naira only per participant, accommodation inclusive. The venue for both courses is the serene and secure environment of NTA TV College, near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For more inquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College, Jos, training you to be the best you want to be.
The program is Good Morning Nigeria, and for our conversation this morning, we are looking at the economic prospects for Nigeria as we count down to the depletion of our oil reserves, which the Department of Petroleum Resources, DPR, has predicted will dry up in the next 49 years. And to set the tone for the conversation, here is Kunle Adeye with the background report.
For over 5 decades, Nigeria's income has come mainly from the oil and gas sector. Other sectors like agriculture, which was the country's economic mainstay, and mining have been relegated and neglected since oil discovery. But with fluctuating global oil price since 2014, the need to diversify the economy has since dawned on Nigeria. As uncertainty beclouds the global oil market, the Department of Petroleum Resources recently revealed that Nigeria's oil reserves, which currently stands at 37 billion barrels, will run dry in 49 years' time. The DPR also advised that to achieve government's aspiration of 4 million barrels per day production and reserves of over 40 billion barrels, there is need for corresponding increase in reserves as production increases. Besides this disclosure by the DPR, some European countries that used to be oil dependent are now working on different technological projects that will enable them use electric vehicles soon. A direct consequence of this move is that there will be a major drop in the demand for crude oil. What does Nigeria need to put in place to ensure it is not caught in the web of economic uncertainty in the near future? Is discovery of oil in other parts of the country a remedy? How realistic and effective is the diversification drive of the federal government? Do we start looking inwards and save for the rainy day? These and more questions will engage guests on Good Morning Nigeria shortly.
All right. Thank you very much, Kunle Adeye, for the background. We have with us in the studios here in Abuja as well as Lagos to discuss this. Let's welcome Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Adetokunbo Kayode. He has been a Minister of the Federal Republic, manning several portfolios: culture, tourism, labor, justice, and now is President of Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Also here with us is another regular guest on Good Morning, Dr. Emeka Okungwu. Is an economist, but he prefers to be called a farmer.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Nigeria. It's good to be here.
Pleasure to have you with us. Dr. Andrew Kwasari is Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agriculture in the Office of the Vice President. Pleasure to have you around on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and joining us from Lagos is Dr. Musa Zagi. He is the Head Gas Monitoring and Regulation in the Department of Petroleum Resources, DPR. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Also in Lagos, we have Chief Eric Umofia. He is a manufacturer and Chief Executive Officer at Risco Foods Limited. Many thanks for joining us, and it's good to see you again.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, gentlemen, let's begin the conversation from our Lagos Network Center, where we just introduced the two guests, Dr. Musa Zagi, who is of DPR. Dr. Musa Zagi, let's have some more insight into the forecast by DPR with regard to the exhaustion of Nigeria's crude oil reserves. What exactly are we talking about here? DPR says, and it was widely reported last week, that in some 50 years, less one, Nigeria's crude oil reserves will be gone. So how do we prepare for the rainy day? Are we talking about crude oil strictly, or we're talking about crude oil and gas?
We are talking of just crude oil, strictly speaking, because for the last 10 years, we have been hovering on 37 billion barrels reserves. We are unable to significantly increase the reserve base of the crude oil. So, but you see, the good news about this is we have the potential of about 600 trillion standard cubic feet of gas in Nigeria. For now, the reserve is 202 trillion standard cubic feet of gas we have in Nigeria, which we are unable to use effectively. Part of the reasons why we are unable to make a maximum utilization of this oil is due to infrastructural deficit we have in the country. But government is making deliberate efforts to make sure that this equipment, these infrastructures are put in place. Another reason is the disparity in the gas price between the domestic market and international market. But for now, even then, though we have about 200 trillion standard cubic feet of gas in reserves, it's strange. It's very paradoxical that as a country, we still import the gas and its derivatives to Nigeria for the use by the common man. So the federal government now, deliberately because of this, have come out with some programs to make sure that this gas reach to the people. The Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources has declared this year as the year of gas, and then he subsequently launched the National Committee or the program of a program on expansion program for gas, so that the gas will reach everybody in Nigeria. So through this program, he set up about 3 subcommittees, a committee on LPG and a committee on CNG and a committee on gas-based industries. The purpose of this committee is to make sure that this gas is made available to Nigerians, is also made affordable and accessible to Nigerians. And in doing so, we are able to preserve the scarce foreign exchange which we spent as a country importing these products. And we are also going to create jobs. Now, coming to talk about the infrastructural deficit, which is one of the major reasons why these gas resources are not available to the common man, there are deliberate efforts to expand the capacity of this of these pipelines or infrastructures. For now, we have the capacity to have about 2.5 billion scf. Our national gas requirement hovers between 3.8 to 4 billion scf. But for now, the capacity we have is 2.5 billion scf. But there are deliberate efforts by the government through, some major gas pipeline projects. You can see we have Obiafo-Obrakon OVM pipeline, which is a 48-inch pipeline and about 130 kilometers from Port Harcourt to Oben in Delta State.
Right. We are going to remain with you because you are touching other issues that may not necessarily be in focus for this particular edition of Good Morning Nigeria. But I want to bring you back. All right. Sorry for pausing you because I was just informing you that you drifted a bit. But all the same, you are in order. But let's bring you back to the issue of oil reserve. I want Nigerians to really have a good understanding of what we're talking about. Are we talking about reserve, the quantum of what Nigeria has, or the ones, if we had a good infrastructure, we ought to have? Because you have mentioned that lack of infrastructure is actually part of the reason why we have this record of about 37 billion barrels as reserve. America, for instance, has over 264 billion barrels of recoverable oil reserve, followed by Russia with about 256 or thereabouts. And again, talking about countries that could be at the same level with Nigeria, like Iran, for instance, it has over 143, and Brazil 120. These are oil reserves. Please let us understand why we have just 37 billion oil reserve. Let Nigerians understand what we're talking about.
37 billion barrels reserves because there are no deliberate efforts to explore the oils by the IOCs. And the ones we have, like I said, in the last 10 years, we are being on this 37 billion barrels of oil reserves. Imagine you keep producing about 2 million barrels per day, and there is no corresponding increment in the reserves. So definitely the reserve volume is going to fall in the next 40 years, especially that now the global focus is shifting from the oil exploration to other sources, like you earlier said in your opening remarks. So there is no kind of incentives, given the kind of focus, international focus on diversifying from fossil fuels to renewable energy. So that's why I now talk about gas reserves, which we are more of a gas nation as a country. We are having over 600 trillion. That is our potentials, like I said. But for now, we have 200 trillion, 202 actually trillion standard cubic feet of gas. So I'm saying that we can do away, we are shifting as a nation from oil to gas so that we make maximum utilization of this God-given resource which we have, which hitherto we are unable to utilize effectively because of lack of infrastructure. That's why I was moving from the reserves to infrastructural deficit that made us not to be able to achieve the maximum utilization of the gas which we have, which government is deliberately now addressing the issue of the infrastructural deficit. Government, like I said, has launched a lot of programs. There's a program on converting, commercializing the players we have, which will give us almost 800 million scores per day if we do that. So as a nation, we even if the oil gets depleted, we have the gas. We are a gas nation. We are able to now at least use the gas resources we have to diversify our economy, to freeze the hard foreign currency which we spend, importing oil. Imagine now, I think if we take the word of the Federal Minister of Finance, we use, in the budget this year, she said we are going to use about 400 billion naira, for under recovery. But the data we have from FIFIA said 750 billion naira, is going to be used for under recovery. So imagine we have now diversified to the use of gas on our vehicles, in our generators, wearing our, industry, gas-based industries. We are going to save a significant amount of money in fossil fuels because the 750 billion naira for under recovery, you see that amount, if federal government can use that money to at least shift us from using the fuel which is imported, that is more than enough to retrofit about 3 million cars. And if you retrofit 3 million cars to use CNG, you are able to make Nigerians save over 50% of what they would have.
All right, Dr. Musa Zage, thank you very much. We'll return to our Lagos Network Center shortly. But I bet, Kieran, the key point that needed to be established is that the exhaustion of Nigeria's oil reserves would not necessarily spell the end of what is generally referred to as the petroleum industry, because we still have gas to deal with, and there are huge opportunities in the gas industry, or in the gas sector, which we haven't started to tap yet. But let's bring in Dr. Emeka Okengwu. Dr. Emeka Okengwu, Nigeria after oil obviously speaks to diversification of the economy, and they need to ramp up other sectors in such a way that as revenues are dwindling from oil as we know it, other sectors are also picking up, just as you have in a number of advanced countries. Are we on the right path?
Again, Kingsley, thank you. And let me, as I usually do, crave your indulgence to step a little bit aside and let's be able to put this in proper context. What was Nigeria during oil? What role did oil play in the lives of Nigeria? Apart from probably making us a country that was credit-worthy, you also shifted us away completely from our capacity to be able to grow as a nation state. It's important to establish that, so that when we're going to be talking about Nigeria after oil, are we going to be looking at a Nigeria that was doing oil? Is that the Nigeria we want after oil? And if it's not Nigeria we want after oil, what do we need to begin to do? I think that is the focus of our conversation today. My brother in Lagos had brought out two very disturbing facts for me. One is that we are still looking at the IOCs and their incapacity or inability or unwillingness to explore for further resources has actually pegged us at where we are now. Okay? So what it simply means is that we'll make you, we break you. That's the message I got there. And the second message you talked about us being a gas country is an old song, like I keep singing. Now we can have all the whole trillion, billion, zillion cubic feet of gas. Until we know what gas is, until we know what gas can be, until we know what gas can do for us, we are not a country. Again, let's now look at Nigeria after oil. And everybody keeps talking about what agriculture did for us. And each time they bring that conversation, I say, yes, it's a very good conversation to actually have. What was agriculture? And what kind of agriculture did we have that made us, what you call a member or gave us a seat in the Committee of States? Was it agriculture that was based on our demands? Or was it agriculture that was fostered for us to be able to now help other people to be able to grow their industries? And this is what happened. It's important to have this clearly so that in also planning our Nigeria after oil, are we going to be going back to the Nigeria of the cash crop days where you had people who wanted our products and the moment they didn't want it anymore, now what had happened was that those lands they took to plant the cash crops they needed were lands that would have been able to make us food secure and has actually made us food insecure. So in looking at agriculture, again, as a way to go, we must now look at it from, was agriculture actually the way it was supposed to be in a country that needed to evolve into a nation state? And then you come to the other angle now, which is again where everybody talks about the mining sector. Okay? When the mining sector was contributing 12% in real terms to the GDP, what kind of mining did we have? Okay, what kind of support infrastructure? What kind of activities? Who controlled it? To what extent did the states play, at that point in time where you had the mining sector contributing so much, to our economy? So for me, my opening statement would be that in designing our Nigeria after oil, but I hate to use the word after oil because as far as I'm concerned, one thing that Nigerians should be very, very sad to discuss, okay, is Nigeria during oil. Because everything that has gone wrong with our country went wrong with Nigeria in oil, okay? And I think in designing a new Nigeria going forward, and we're now going to be talking about, what I rather call our natural resources, so that we can be able to contain them well, okay? And this is where we'll be talking about our science and technology. And against that, we should be talking about our human capital, or what you call our human resources. Because every time you see politicians or you see statesmen come to make speeches, the first thing you hear, endowed with numerous human resources, endowed with numerous natural resources. And then you say to them, can we now have a number of these, your numerous? Okay, and because of these numerous, we are planning our GDP against nothing. Okay, we are planning our economic development programs against numerous. And I can tell you in development, numerous is just a perception, if you may. So I think in moving our country after oil, I wish this 37 million was actually 3.7, 37 billion was 3.7 million. Or that the man in DPR was asserting us that we were on our last well. I can tell you, my brother, I keep saying this. Each time I go to Europe and I see the kind of things that they do there, my heart bleeds. For a country that has 81 million hectares of land that is arable, we have so much that we can be able to do if we were just able to understand that your human resource is actually the beginning of the process to human capital, and that your natural resource and what you do with it is actually the reasons why you're poor or rich, and where you have the space or place you have in what you call the Committee of Nations.
Yes, thank you, Dr. King. And that brings us to a point where we will bring in the son with us here, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Dr. Kumbo Kayode. Sir, you've been in government in different capacities. And of course, Nigeria has run on oil for nearly 60 years now. And if you listen to Dr. King, who has raised some very pertinent issues concerning governance, concerning deliverables, other sectors apart from oil. Now we are talking about Nigeria after oil. Nigeria during oil, I'm not sure we fared well, according to Dr. Oking. So how did you feel when you received the bombshell from DPR that our oil is depleting, and of course in the next 49 years it will be no more?
Thank you very much. First of all, I don't think it is a news that we will deplete our resources in oil. We always knew it was a depleting resource. We always knew that. So I just, this failure or inability to do anything about it. First of all, a depleting resource is a depleting resource. Let's understand that. Whether oil has been a good thing or a cause for us, it's open debate. We all debate this all the time. For me, I want to think about the way forward. And again, the way forward is there, staring us in the face. First of all, we should learn some lessons from what has happened. We've been very dependent, very rent-seeking our approach to this. We rely on the IOCs to dig for the oil, we rely on IOCs to move the oil out, we rely on them to pay us. We rely on them to even process this crude oil, because we are just a crude oil nation. We import petrol, we import diesel, we import everything. Even we import our own gas, processed gas, our own gas. So what is the lesson? From today, all we just need is a direction, policy direction from government. We need to process what we have in terms of the remaining gas or oil. We need to emphasize more on processing rather than importing. And that is doable, very, very doable. If, for instance, DPR or the Ministry of Petroleum Resources could just make it easier for people to do refinery in Nigeria. We've been talking about modular refineries and all that. We'll begin to add value. You see, we don't create, there's no value addition to the oil that we have. Even now that we still have 40-something, there's no value addition. And that's why we create the value chain that makes the economy to work. But going forward, really, many countries that are surviving today have not really been dependent on natural resources. We know many countries, Korea, Japan, others, what natural resources they have. But they use the people to create value. People talk of human capital and knowledge economy. So that is a way forward for the world, and we have it. When it comes to ability to think, we have it. And we have lots of people. You know, having a large population is an advantage, even though it's also a disadvantage if you do not use it properly. So let us use it. Let us emphasize knowledge economy, and let us emphasize agriculture, which we have arable land. My brother here, Dr. Andrew, knew me recently, because I've been, even though I have a legal background and whatever, but I've been so concerned about certain basic things about agriculture. So I sought him out. We had a roundtable in the Chamber of Commerce to talk about livestock. Strange, isn't it? But I sought him out. Is that not so? I sought him out to talk about livestock and look at the huge opportunity there. So, and this is just one tiny part of agriculture. You know, so there's a lot we can do. Doctor here made this very good point about what was our focus on agriculture before in the past, where we do groundnut pyramids. We didn't even keen to the value chain of that, or the palm oil value chain, and the cocoa value chain. We still export cocoa, for instance. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it's just a matter of policy. If Ondo State today says that, okay, you can, all the Indians and Chinese that buy all the cocoa from the farm, you can buy your cocoa, but you cannot take raw cocoa out of Ondo State. You must process it up to a point. You see the value chain being created. Again, if you go to Bangkok,
They do gemstone processing, and Nigeria is the source of at least 30% of that gemstone. Again, our government don't know this because the structure is designed for us not to know. Now, you can take all the gemstones in, but you cannot take them out. You must process before you take out. That is using knowledge economy, knowledge, creating a value chain for yourself. So we have to key to this. And this is not really too difficult, honestly. It's a matter of policy.
But you know,
policy.
You know, give us your experience, the benefit of your experience in government. Because, frankly, this is not a new thing to talk about how to diversify the economy and how to worry about life after oil, as it were. I mean, all of these ideas, keep popping up. But why have we not created a critical mass? Why? What's the missing link?
Okay.
Yes.
Based on my own experience in 4 or 5 years in government, I think there's a huge gap in our policy making process. I can tell you, and I stand to be challenged or corrected, that in the Federal Executive Council, or first of all, Federal Executive Council is not a policy body. You'll be shocked, but they don't discuss policy. There's no way you can bring up issue of policy because you come there with your memo, is that is approved, it's not approved, then you move on. There's no platform for policy. And secondly, there's this huge gap about monitoring and evaluation. Even the little policies we have, are they being done? And that is at the presidential level. You know, there are 2 levels of government in Nigeria, and you need to know this. So when people say, oh, this minister did this, or even the little policy we make at the villa level, somebody else has to implement it at the ministry level. And they are never at Edem. Well, I use Latin word. They are never on the same page. So it really involves strong leadership and that's the gap, really. You can go everywhere you like. If you take a decision today and you put your foot down, you put milestones and timelines, it is doable. It is doable. We have seen it. When I left government, I came back to the private sector, and it's shocking because what I can achieve in my office in a day, you can't achieve in a ministry in a year. And every new idea is fought. The system fights it. The system fights it, even everywhere, So, and the country is bleeding. And one of the things that pains me most, sometimes you regret, why do you even take appointment? Because in my about 38 years of professional life, I worked for government for 5 years. I've been in private sector. And you find out that people ask you, what did you achieve when you were there? I said, look, you want to do this, you have to fight every inch of the way. You are in civil service, you know what I'm talking about. You have to fight every inch of the way. And you don't get the backing because there's no policy buy-in. And if something is pushed out, you spend 1 year in one ministry. For instance, I was in defense for 1 year. Within the 3 years before that, there were 3 ministers. So in 4 years, there were 4 ministers in the Ministry of Defense. So I just take that as an iconic example of what I'm talking about. So how does policy, even if it's there at all, how does it get implemented and ensure that it's done?
Yeah. I can't understand. But the points you have raised are important. Policy formulation and implementation, the major challenges that we face.
Monitoring and evaluation.
Yeah, monitoring and evaluation. President Obasanjo tried to set up, some monitoring and evaluation mechanism, but it didn't quite work. Kyria, you see what we are faced with here. Yes, we can have all the specification, all the claims to say we want to diversify the economy. You hear it from the top, you hear it from top-ranking government officials. But when it comes to, say, the brass tacks, getting things to work, that's part of what the SAN is referring to. But Andrew Kwasari, let's get your own experience specific to agriculture.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And I want to thank the previous speakers again. So first and foremost, I would like to again set a little bit of context here, that globally, there are fewer than 3 nations that are developed today that got developed by skipping agriculture. All nations in the world started their process of development by getting agriculture right. And getting agriculture right formed the foundation. I think I could be corrected. Outside Singapore, I don't know any other country that is developed today that didn't, first of all, lay the appropriate foundations for its development, economic development on agriculture. Secondly, I would like to state that in agriculture, what San has just said, or generally, but let me restrict myself to agriculture because I want to make my point clear. The issue with Nigeria is not about policies. It's about policy implementation, the capacity to execute the policies we have. And therefore, this rests squarely on the institutions, particularly the civil service or the public service institutions that are meant to execute these policies. Then let me now set one more context before commenting on Nigeria after oil. Is that globally, countries develop when 4 factors are in place. In the modern world, we have seen rapid development when there is technological advancement in everything, particularly now in agriculture. So I want to speak to agriculture. So the progress of technology is one. The progress of technology forms a pair when it has a handshake with capitalism or private capital. So these two, they drive development economically. The third and the fourth is good governance and public awareness, which to some extent, the topic we're discussing today is a kind of public awareness flagged off by DPR, which is not news at all. It is not news that Nigeria or global economies have passed the peak of importance of oil, or oil as very important to economy. We've passed its peak importance long ago. So whether it is going to run out or not run out, it is not really relevant. That is not news at all, as Sam said. Then the last component I want to add then, before I make another clear statements on agriculture, is the issue of resources. We have 2 types of resources. We have the limited resources or non-renewable resources like the oil we're talking about and all of that. But there's a critical resource that Dr. mentioned and San mentioned, which is the human capital. And I think as a people, it's still fresh in our mind that the 2018 Nobel Prize winner who shared Nobel Prize in economics, Paul Ruma, his reason for winning Nobel Prize 2018 was his essay or whatever on what he called endogenous technologies. And what does it mean? It means human capital, that this is another resource that is inexhaustible, because it is just the ability of ideas to recombine new technologies, that as long as ideas continue to be available to recombine, then you can never run out of it. So it is not a resource like oil that we can run out of. So now put this in context. What do we need for agriculture? And the speakers have all said it. The agriculture of the yesteryears is not the type of agriculture Nigeria needs to move forward after oil, where you basically produce raw materials and exported them, what they call cash crops. We need today to allow, and I'm sure the federal government and has to work with the state government, all the problems are known. What we need is, how do we sharpen execution? How do we sharpen execution in a way that agriculture can allow space for technology to advance?
What have you found as a challenge with this particular point? In your interaction, why is it that when we have all the ideas, just to put them on ground to work, what have you found?
It's the capacity to execute. And let me tell you what I found. The policies are there. Even now, the current sectoral policy in agriculture, the agriculture promotion policy, if implemented well, you will see the result. And now, why is implementation a challenge? Because the institutions that are meant to implement have to have the capacity to implement. And it's basically the civil service.
I'm leaping it again. I'm leaping it again. And yet, we talk about the fact that we have human resources in Nigeria.
Yes, we have human resources, sir. And let me tell you how it works. Your execution is only as good as your tools. Your tool, if a human resource, in this case is our tool, the institutions of government, if they are sharp or blunt, you will get sharp or blunt execution. So in this case, the blunt nature of the institutions as of today needs to be looked into. And basically, it's just a shift in the way we deal with things to organize implementation in a coordinated manner. And we come back to agriculture, sir. What do we need today to create the atmosphere for technology to pervade the whole of agriculture? It's just organize the agricultural sector. Let me tell you, sir, between 2005 and 2015, China targeted 20 million smallholder farmers, basically transferred the use of technology on how to apply fertilizer. And they saw tremendous yields of 20 million smallholder farmers. Why were they able to deal with 20 million smallholder farmers? Because they have the soft infrastructure called data on the smallholder farmers. So such infrastructure does not exist today to sharpen execution on agricultural policies in Nigeria.
Okay, sorry, we're going to come back to you. Thanks. But what has remained constant, in all your submissions this morning, it has been the issue of technology. I think we are in a global, we are part of the global setting. And we have discovered that, look, even when you talk about agriculture, you talk about education, whatever that it is driven by science and technology. And the point is that we are not growing indigenous technology in the first place. We are importing technologies that expire. And you need now to buy, the new ones, and all that. And with that, I'm not sure it's possible to address some of these issues. But let's go to a manufacturer who has been there for over 40 years, if I'm right. I knew him way back in the 1980s when he was doing firefighting equipment by himself. And now we're talking about Chief Executive Officer of Erisco Foods, Chief Eric Umuofia. Chief Umuofia, let's get from your experience what it has been all this while that you've been in manufacturing. Put that in context of what we're discussing this morning, which is, of course, Nigeria after oil. Let's hear from you.
Thank you very much. Well, this is one of my best days of discussion we are doing from NTA. It's a good wake-up call. I thank you for that, both to government and to individual. Because Nigeria after oil concerns everyone, not only government. Nigeria after oil is very important, though if God is hearing my own prayers, I don't want to hear 50 years is very far. However, I want Nigerians themselves, government, and we Nigerians to believe in this country and use the remaining part of 30, 40 years of oil to energize our own industries. Because oil has dealt with us. Oil has caused a lot of damage to this country. When I was small, in faraway village of Amish, I saw my father's cocoa farm, I saw my father's palm farm, but now, because since oil came, oil is like spirit, and the money works like spirit, and it works. I thought that spirit never catch a country. Nigeria is only where spirit of oil money costs spirit to the system. Everyone wants easy money. Easy money without foundation can never take you to anywhere. Even religion, we believe, said you should work before you have. Now, if Nigerians start now, today, I think we'll get to there. Everybody is talking of agriculture, very good. I want to remind Nigerians that what about cocoa we've been producing for many years? Any processing? No. Any manufacturing? No. We are making the economy of other countries via our agriculture, where we're supposed to focus on producing and manufacturing. You grow a fruit, you plant today. We thank God we have a good land, valuable land in this country, very fertile land. Maybe that's why God don't want to answer our prayer by oil. Because we are strong, we plant what we can eat, more healthy, more proud, everybody will be happy to himself than few people to control the economy, and the economy is bleeding, more people are not having job. If we are focused like coconut, Government will say, okay, I want to focus on processing cocoa. I will not export one single cocoa from this country again. Let them come here and put the plant, export from Nigeria. It's a good thing. But we keep saying agriculture. I'm a practical manufacturer. I know the problem of Nigeria is not the government have tried enough now. They have set a good step for us to follow. But are we patronizing product of made in Nigeria? You as individual, your organization, your family? How can we expect to have change without bringing out money? Or want to go to heaven without dying? It's not possible. So what I'm trying to say, after oil, Nigeria will be better, more strong, because we found what we have, eat fresh things, not to eat what they are sending to us here. If you like it, you don't like it, you eat and die gradually. For example, now the Sun said they are talking of livestock. Do you know that if Nigerian process meat, grow meat and processed meat to supply Africa, is a lot of good money to come into this country? But for the fact that we don't know the impact, we're talking agriculture. My friend this last year farmed cassava, and the cassava was everywhere. He lost money, 6 million, run away. If there were manufacturing and processing plant, that's what we need in this country now. You can't do agriculture without processing and manufacturing. It's impossible. But people think you grow good food today is done well. I have more than what I had before. When you don't sell it next year, you run away. But if there's manufacturing and processing, you process either for export, if there's excess, or process from local factory to use. But we have not done that earlier. Now we are talking of oil, gas, and everything. Gas required to be used in the industry by special generator that costs not less than 100 million naira. How many people can invest on that without good support? The what government is doing now, if they have done that since we've been saying it, I thank God they ran their eyes now. CBN is doing excellently well now. Government itself is trying to, they are firing from all angles now. Though it's coming to be late, but it's better to be late than never. But the important thing is that Nigeria should start now. We can't just be talking. If you talk to any government officer or any person, they need to diversify. The same person that needs to diversify, go and ask, this is what I need to do. They tell you, oh, too much is too much. Then we continue to pack our money outside, wounding the economy, depending on oil. In fact, if God loves Nigeria, he should take this oil away so that Nigeria will know whether they are going to go back to. We have been living fine. We use oil money to destroy ourselves, our economy, to the highest grade. So it's good you do this program now. We love it, and I want government to continue to sustain what they are doing. We individuals should keep. Oil money is spirit money. Spirit money can never help in the economy. Go to China. China has nothing to do with oil. That's why if I go to China, I like to go to manufacturing factories there to see how they are doing. Go to Japan, go to Taiwan. Those people have made, and they make things that's not possible to be possible. We have oil, still. We are inside the water, and we don't have water to bath. It's unbelievable. This country, we need to change today if we want things to work well. Practicalize this law for this country. Let good things come to this country. Buy product of Nigeria, support Nigerians, give company of Nigerians support, give them deposit to do the same thing they are doing. They are going to buy overseas. They will not. This is made in Nigeria. I will not. Then you are eating Nigerian money, eating Nigerian economy. You should transfer it to be foreigner. But if you are not lucky, you send it where there is COVID-19. So I want the people to have rethinking again. See, government banned the product like rice. Go to market now and see foreign rice. Where are they coming from? Government have done their own. They banned tomato, they're still buying it. Till when will you love this country? The same money you continue blaming government for what you are doing to you are wounding us. In fact, we are like somebody that is not sick. Somebody is sick, that is not well. You ask the person, can I help you to hospital? Say no. So he want to die. They allow him to do his wish. This country, everyone of us must stand to the feet now. What is happening now is just a minute of what is happening. All these devices there is because there's no work. There's no work, and government is trying to create their own job. We are not stopping. We are not helping them. We need to create more 100 times, 1,000 times of job for our youth to click where they're supposed to be. When I was growing up, there was hope. Now, why is there no hope? Because of oil money. So I plead that things will be right and done in this country. Everybody will support government policy. Everybody will support his own conscience. According to our religion, religion says charity begins at home. I thank Nigerians.
All right. Chief Eric Ubofia, thank you very much there for your comments. But just before we return to our guests again, I think it's useful, Kirian, to provide some perspective, very briefly. It isn't necessarily the case that Nigeria was never a manufacturing hub of some sorts. If you look at what happened, say, First Republic, right up until the 80s or thereabout, especially after the structural adjustment program, you had industries, and these industries were engaged in manufacturing of various sectors. I mean, when you had WNDC, Western Nigeria Development Corporation, and then the ICC, that is Industrial and Credit or something Corporation, it was to advance credit for industrialization. You had industries in the West, you had industries in the East, you had in the Midwest, you had in the North.
What happened was sustainability was not there.
No, so that's why I contextualize it by saying after the structural adjustment program of 1986, look, Odutola Tires, everybody, I'm sure, you're familiar, Odutola Tires, it was an indigenous manufacturer of tires. Ribwe Tires was manufactured by Eribo. Eribo in Benin, Edo Textile Mill, Asaba textile mills in Aba and elsewhere around the country. So you had industries, but of course, the economy took a downturn and we failed to manage it properly. But still, in trying to get the policy mix, just hang on, I know, Kwasaria, in trying to get the policy mix, Senior Advocate Reto Kumba mentioned something. I mean, for those who have experience in government, well, that is not necessarily a surprise, but it is useful in getting this thing right. That whether a state executive council or a federal executive council oftentimes turns out to be like a country club, a gentleman's club, where you don't go for serious argument. It's not a parliament. But how do we move from saying you make your proposal? Let's assume you are Minister of Industries, Minister of Agriculture, and there's no saying, you come with your own memo, I don't interfere with your memo goes, my own memo goes. How then do we ensure that at the end of the day, we are not working in silos, that we can synergize and then canalize all of this? One practical example. Look, why is it so difficult for us to mechanize our agriculture?
Well, thank you very much. For me, there's nothing difficult about these things. It's just you to understand, like you have malaria, you've diagnosed that you have malaria, not just headache. Then you just put the treatment. I'm not too convinced that year in, year out, the government have been able to properly understood the diagnosis and the medicine to be prescribed. If we want to talk about industrialization, which is across both things, whether for agriculture or any other thing, industry is key, okay? And that's the point Erisco was trying to make. You must have a clear policy about this and do it. If you look at the Western region, even the North, they had a policy to establish industrial, those they call them industrial estates. Now we call them industrial parks. Just do it. Secondly, government will never run an industrial park. It will never happen. Or industrialize, it will never happen. But just create the environment and allow it to be done. And I can just tell you from my own experience as a lawyer who has been in business and who is still in business and who went through government and all that and came back, is that, you see, if for instance I want to set up a factory today, government will take at least 30% of my money. Government will take it. Stamp duty, registration fees, consent fees, tax, all kinds of permits. You understand? All that is putting a roadblock in my way of doing business. To be fair to this current government, they identified that the Vice President made a lot of noise in the past, and a lot of effort actually in the past 2-3 years on ease of doing business. It is an acceptance of the fact that government has been in the way of doing business. So the way forward, just leave the road, allow business to take place, allow it to happen. People like Erisco Bumpet and everyone, I mean, Erisco,
that was his product.
That was his product.
Yes.
People like him and others want to do entrepreneurship. Young people, there's so much creativity and opportunity, but government should just get out of the way. I know the unfortunate part of it is that it's a vicious circle, because if you don't get out of the way, you keep businesses in the unofficial sector. You understand? And you cannot tax them ultimately. But if you help business to grow, they become formal, and you can even tax them. By going to keep business this way, they remain informal. So again, for me, I'm very clear in my mind that it is just a matter of we understanding what we need to be doing and do it. And take a sector, everything is sectoralized. You take agriculture. Within agriculture, you just allow the value chain to develop. I go back to livestock because, again, just to take up a risk on what he was talking about. It's a huge value chain. Do you know that why people eat pomo in Nigeria? We eat pomo because we don't have a leather industry. We don't have a leather industry because we don't have a modern abattoir system. We don't have a modern abattoir system because we don't have layerage where you keep cattle properly, before they are taken to abattoir. We don't have a layerage because we don't have a proper ranch system. We don't have a proper ranch system because we don't have a proper breeding system. Are you getting? Am I making sense?
We have to take a break now. You're making a lot of sense in this, you know.
So just allow the system to work. Leadership. You see, everything boils down to that. Honestly, let me tell you, everything boils down to that. Take one person. Kieran, you don't need to be a livestock expert. So far you have focus. Any parent can say, okay, look, go and this is what I want. Milestones, timelines, go and deliver. You will deliver it.
Okay.
And if you don't, you get out of the way. There's no marking. People stay in office and whatever. Nobody cares.
All right, thank you, Adekunbo Akayode, SA. From all indications, as a man who's been in government, I think what you have said this morning is very apt, you know, considering our focus this morning on Good Morning Nigeria, because it does appear that we normally have a policy somersault, and we have this attitude of not sustaining projects, even those that are already being implemented. You talked about governments that cannot do any business, that better create an enabling environment. I'm going to ask Emeka after the break to talk more on that, because some countries, especially those who were of course classified as third world countries that are doing well now, the Asian tigers, for instance, you know, they have a way with business. The government doesn't keep away from business, right? And that is why we have multinationals coming from the Asian tigers across Africa and elsewhere in the globe. For now, we're taking a short break. When we come back, the conversation continues.
One live happily ever after.
Auntie, can I have a cookie?
Not until you wash your hands with antibacterial soap. Germs are like dragons hiding everywhere.
I also want to conquer a dragon, Auntie. Me too.
We can. Children are constantly exposed to diseases that cause colds, flu, and diarrhea. Mothers know that washing your hands with antibacterial soap stops the spread of germs and diseases. So you have to wash your hands before touching or eating. And when you come home after a long day and after using the toilet, I love my family, and I know you love yours too. That is why I now regularly wash my hands with antibacterial soap. Would you join me as we wash our hands to protect Naija?
The Better Clean Naija initiative is in partnership with the Federal Ministry of Water Resources.
My name is Balaunti. I'm the Managing Director of Petroleum Product Marketing Company, a subsidiary of NNPC. There are significant price discrepancy between Nigeria and its neighbors across Africa. There's a discrepancy of between 150 to 250 naira. That creates an incentive for arbitrage, whereby smuggling triumphed by taking petroleum product across the neighbors so that they can be sold at higher price. While the smugglers are making the money, Nigeria is paying for it. And that payment is distorting everything that we do in terms of planning, in terms of our ability to fund, and thereby taking money that is meant for development. The introduction of this Operation White will have a reduction of close to 6 million liters on daily basis, which if you take an average of 150, translate to a saving of over 1 billion naira every day. That is the benefit of Operation White, and we have started seeing the great benefit.
To they disobey traffic law, they cause accidents. Me, I don't talk, say, I no go dey do them again, because change begins with me.
I will no longer endanger my life crossing the express. Instead, I will use the bridge, because change begins with me.
Oga driver, stop this bus now, won't come down. I be one carry me past where they go.
Make I dey stop anyhow for road, they cause traffic wahala and accidents. So I go dey stop for the right bus stop, because change begins with me.
Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
And you're welcome back. A report just reaching us says that the incumbent Togolese president, Faure Gnassingbé, has been declared winner of last Saturday's presidential election. Musbah Dan Wahab, correspondent there, reports that the provisional result announced midnight into early Monday by the Electoral Commission indicates that Mr. Faure Gnassingbé received 72% of the vote. Compared with about 18% for Mr. Aboyome Kojo, who came second. Mr. Kojo, former Prime Minister and head of the National Assembly, has rejected the result, alleging irregularities in the conduct. The result is to be ratified by the Constitution Court. President Gnassingbé, who took over after the death of his father, Gnassingbé Yadima, in 2005, is going for the 4th term in office.
All right, so that's some news coming from our correspondent, Musbah Dan Wahab, who is covering the presidential election in Togo. Now we take some tweets from our viewers on the subject matter of Nigeria after oil. And Dele Jack Solomon, for many years, Nigeria's oil industry has been plagued by corruption and mismanagement. This is why we are where we are. Nigeria has immense potential to be a key exporter of food, yet it relies on imports of food to support its rapidly growing population. Nigeria's intrinsic potential lies beyond oil. Agriculture, retail, and ICT are priority sectors.
Reverend Mani Akpan, Nigeria is not yet ready for a life after oil. Those countries that are ready, invest their oil revenue systematically in other sectors like education, ICT, science, and many more. Here, we are more interested in leaning our own pockets, he says. God help us, or help our children.
Titus Mondenok, Nigeria needs to go green, and alternative and renewable energy resources are the way out for our future. Even the oil-rich nations are diversifying towards that stream. What are we waiting for?
The next Nigeria oil is agriculture. The earlier our teeming youths come in terms with the reality, take advantage of it, the better. Those with discerning mind among them are already keyed into the initiative. Today's agriculture is beyond hoes and cutlasses.
Excuse me, Onwangogo Silvanus. The Nigerian experience after the discovery of oil is indeed regrettable, being the source of endemic corruption that has bedeviled us and kept Nigeria at a third world level, abandoning and forsaking palm oil, cocoa, groundnuts, and coal. That was our undoing.
We told us Sunday, Nigeria after oil for now will be a total collapse, considering the situation we found ourselves. No state, even Lagos and Kano, can boast to function without oil. We really need total federalism to test run which state is viable. For now, it's a no-no.
Chris Simeon, diversification or not, oil is a blessing to Nigeria. At present, the biggest revenue to our country comes from oil and the gas sector.
Law Alpha C, kudos should be given to this administration for systematically and patriotically diversifying the economy of this country so that in due course the economy will not depend squarely on oil.
All right, this is coming from Abba Tukor. It says government can achieve more if the oil, agriculture, and other segments of the economy are utilized and managed properly for the benefits of all Nigerians.
All right, from Festus Akimba, we are in the era of renewable revolution, and the big fossil fuel producers like Nigeria are already losing influence. Also, many workers depend on government for employment, and losing our main source of revenue will be devastating time to diversify our economy and find other sources of energy.
With the vast mineral and agricultural resources in the country, the future of the country's economic development is not only assured, but indeed sustainable if properly exploited and utilized. So those are the tools that we have. You were priming.
Yes, Emeka, to coming on. What should actually be the role of government when it comes to business? We hear this a lot, that government has no business in business. But in some countries, they have a hidden headline in terms of development. Government really has business in business. For instance, if you talk about some of the countries in the Southeast Asia, like Indonesia, which also has the oil, like Nigeria, does, they diversified over 40 years ago.
Well, we've always diversified. It's important to know that the diversification didn't start today. And what's also important is for us to also now process what you also mean by government. Because the moment you use the word government, everybody talks about the Federal Executive Council. And nobody remembers that there's a fourth layer of government that is called the CDAs, even before you go to the local governments and the state governments. So at the level of the sub-nationals, I think that is where we have a problem. I've had arguments where people say to you that the national budget of Nigeria is 9 trillion. That's not true. Okay? The national budget of Nigeria has to be the inclusivity of all the budgets of the sub-nationals, from the local government councils to the state councils. And let me tell you why we have a lot of these issues. If you look at the policy that Dr. Andrew had mentioned, roles were clear there. And a lot of the roles that were given to the federal government were the roles of administration, okay, and oversight. And then you go down to the states where they're not supposed to be the ones that are doing the proper implementation. And that's where you actually see the devil in the room. Because at that state level, state also does not own land. And when you talk about a lot of these community lands being ancestral lands, Dr. Andrew talked about the 20 million people that China captured, okay, and then took technologies to them. We are doing agriculture on the air. That is what we are doing in Nigeria. At the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, they bring out all these very laudable, beautiful ideas, but you don't have land. At the state government, you are not aligning the policies, and not only the policies. Again, the budgets, not only the budgets, the projects, not only the projects, okay? And then the outputs vis-a-vis the allied infrastructure. So anytime anybody tells you agriculture, I say no. Can we be able to break this thing to what it is? Are we talking about food production? Are we talking about medicinal plants production? Are we talking about industrial inputs? Then what is the role of the mining sector? Can I tell you people, the mining sector is the only sector that can actually give you what they call in situ value. You can make a lot of money by not even bringing out a grain or a ton, okay, of what resources, if you're able to do the proper exploration. So we must be able to look at our country in the proper context. You've asked the role of government. And I want to ask a question. Probably Dr. Andrew, who is in the villa, will help us. Has there been any time state governments in this country were asked to bring their budgets, okay, for development, and then they matched it with also the budgets of development of the federal government? Has that ever happened? I'm not talking about governors coming in NEC. I'm invited once or twice to give briefs in NEC. I mean, you prepare a paper for 2 hours, and they say to you, oh no, you only have 5 minutes to be able to deliver it. So what do you people discuss at NEC? What alliances can you be able to build? Now, why I'm going to really...
Sorry, they are having a meeting this week, and they will be discussing SS crude account and why it was depleted. I read that in one of the papers.
Great. Yes. Great. So that would be good for us. But how are you now tying your population? How are you tying your habitation? You see, there's something we're trying to do. Look at the Ministry of Science and Technology. Each time I come on air here, I say to you, Ministry of Science and Technology, every or most of the agencies that can actually support food production is in the Ministry of Science and Technology. And until we're able to have this new thinking, where we are talking about what we now call nationally determined outputs, Like you have what you call your national determined commitments in our environmental laws. How many Nigerians, and I keep saying this, know that agroforestry is actually under the Ministry of Environment? Has nothing to do with the Ministry of Agriculture. Yet you go to the Ministry of Agriculture and you see them establishing plants to be able to process agroforestry products. Now, who handles medicinal plants? Under whose purview is that? Yet you have a research center they call the NIPRID that has thus far been able to develop a lot of drug streams that can be commercialized. I have this on very good authority. There are over 250, research outputs documented, but not one, has been put out for commercialization. Why? Because you do not have this so-called land that everybody keeps shouting about. You don't have this synergy that's able to now create it. So in answering your question in just one sentence, you asked me, what is the role of government in business? Let us understand what business of government is, and then we can be able to understand their role. The role of government is to be able to ensure social security. What does that tie to? Jobs. Ensure national security. What does that tie to? Jobs. Ensure now what you call the enabling environment for people to be able to do business. What does that mean? That you must be able to develop these policies that tie you as one government onto one program, onto one direction, and which must tie CDA, LGA, state governments to our national government.
Andrew. Yeah. Well, still on agriculture, there was a time you were itching to respond to one of the comments made. Let's practicalize this. Sometimes when you see video clips, when you're talking about agriculture, it's still the same hoes and machetes and wheelbarrows that you find all over the place. Is the land tenure a challenge to say, why don't we see a great deal of enthusiasm at the subnational level where you find tractors and all kinds, combined harvesters, the whole works working, and then we're not talking about, we have problems with food storage and so on and so forth. What is the problem?
Thank you very much. I think you had put this question to SAN before. Is it possible to mechanize agriculture? Mm-hmm. Yes, it is possible. Is land tenure a problem for agricultural productivity or performance in Nigeria today? No, is the answer. Land tenure system as it is today does not hinder any agricultural productivity. Now let me go back to mechanization. It is very possible to mechanize agriculture, but we must mechanize agriculture differently. We must mechanize agriculture on the back of private sector operation. This is just it. There is no way we are going to ever mechanize agriculture when government, whether at federal or state level, or the LGA or the CDA he mentioned, are the ones driving the ownership of the machineries that will be used on the farms. You see, we have to open up that market, and I think the federal government now is almost there with the policy, with the bilateral program developed with Brazil, where they hope to enable agricultural mechanization managed and operated by private sector, where the whole of the operation is to sell services to smallholder farmers and the medium scale and large scale farmers. If we do not allow private capital, whether you call it capitalism or whatever, into agriculture to drive the penetration of technologies, we are not going to get anywhere. And I think we have to understand why this is very important. We cannot reinvent the wheel. Nigeria is not an island. We have seen it over and again. All the economies of the world developed in this way. There are two kinds of economies in the world. Whether you run a market-led democratic economy, or you run a market-led socialism, which will also work like in China to some extent. But once the market is not driving it, private capital is not allowed to have protection and enablement to bring to bear the two incentives and benefits of interest and profits. Then we're not going to get that. But Kilian, one last thing. Okay. There was a comment about why have industrialization stopped or manufacturing, particularly the agro-allied. It's simple. Nigeria deviated from financing supply chains. Once industries or manufacturing plants don't have sustainable quantifiable, predictable supply of raw material for their operations, they are going to fold up.
Thank you.
And therefore, we must go back to that part where we finance supply chain, where everything the smallholders grow everywhere in the world, find their way to the Ericssons, to the whoever in the world.
Eric Mafia.
Okay.
If you call him Ericsson, that's different.
Is that not?
See him on the screen. He's not Ericsson.
Ericsson, not the brand of the tomatoes.
Time is not on our side. You know, time is not on our side. Why I actually raise the issue of a government rule is that what I've seen elsewhere, you know, is that government bails out. Even when Obama was in power in the U.S., he was bailing out the companies, even and all of that. Sir,
There must be, sir. Just a moment. Let's clarify this. The problem is, sir, government has a specific role, and he has said it. So enablement is allowed by government. And in this, if you look at the APP, we have defined what government should do.
Sorry, we have the time is gone. The time is gone. If government rule is not working, you can change the process. You can change it. You adapt the policy that is workable. The ones who do it is not workable. So what do you do?
It's the execution, sir.
All right, gentlemen, it's been a very healthy conversation, but I would have loved our guests in Lagos to just say one or two, just in 10 seconds. Let's say from Erisco, just in your final thoughts, just in 5 seconds, please.
My final thought is that Nigerians should support Nigerian after oil, buy made in Nigeria, support Nigerian policy. Customs have done their best, don't smuggle more. And if you see smuggle item, don't buy, because it might be poison. Thank you.
All right, and I also like to comment on your suit, which of course I'm sure is made of Ankara, very beautiful. Well, let's get our DPR man there to say something. Yeah, your final word, please. Please.
Yes, my final word as a representative of the Department of Petroleum Resources is that well, it's good to diversify the economy, but it's also good to make maximum use of the resources which we have. As we transit to renewable sources of energy, as a country endowed with serious resources, we cannot leave those resources unattended to. So good thing is that Nigeria is now focusing on gas, like I told you, and by the time we get the gas to the people, we will free a lot of foreign exchange that is hitherto being spent on importation of this product. We cannot afford to be a gas country and be importing gas and other foreign products. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Would like to thank you. That's Dr. Musa Zagi, who is of DPR, that's the Department of Petroleum Resources. Thank you very much. You were with Chief Eric Umofia, Erisco, the famous Erisco, who is a manufacturer based in Lagos. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us on the conversation today. We also would like to appreciate those who've been with us in the Abuja studios. Dr. Andrew Kwasare, SSA, to the President and Agriculture Office of the Vice President. Thanks a lot for being around. Emeka Okengu, also a doctor, development economist, who prefers to be called a farmer.
Proud farmer. Put proud.
Okay, it's a proud.
Thank you.
Proud farmer. I've never eaten your produce, so you bring it from the gate, from the farm gate to the studio, so we can work part of it. You know. I hope your farm is mechanized. You know?
Yeah, yes, it is.
All right, thanks a lot. Adetokunbo Kayode, learned senior advocate of Nigeria, former minister of the Federal Republic, and currently president of Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria today. All right, so that does it for the first edition of Good Morning Nigeria for the week. We are back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Kirin Umar. It's been a pleasure hosting you on the show today. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Udene karaka ne mepuso afo.
One, my son, what can I do for you?
Baba, you need to help me. Oh. It be like say somebody they winch me.
You say waiting?
You see, all my goats and chicken, everything don't finish, Baba. They do me. Even my business, don't pafuka.
I see.
They do me. Even my pikin, when be they do well for school, now so fail in they fail, Baba. They do me, Baba. Even self, it be like say I sick, Baba. I think say the winch don't give me HIV.
My pikin, not at all. Nobody fit carry winch give you HIV. The thing no they fly for air, my pikin. Anybody will tell you that one. Na lie.
No matter how the wind's strong, nobody.
Are we live? I think we are. It's incredible right here.
And I'm contesting for One House reality
TV show, season 1. I'm here for the fun. I'm here for the platform.
And now my cars are dancing, singing, causing trouble.
I am an entertainer.
I'm a filmmaker, a show promoter. I'm a model,
Professional barber,
songwriter and a rapper. And I'm a trader. I'm representing the Yoruba Demon. I'm a real savage. I say I'm bringing fire.
Follow the lives of 50 entrepreneurs in one house for 30 days as they compete for the ultimate prize of a brand new car and 5 million naira worth of cash and gifts in the One House reality TV show Connecting the Dots. Powered by Zanti Entertainment.
One house, my brother.
Wow. Please, you guys need to come and see this thing. So there's this guy in my area called Lord Spark. You don't see him during the day, but at night, he's very active. I went to the police, man. I was scared, though. They were nice to me and all, and they promised to protect my identity. 3 days later, the police showed up at Lord Spark's door.
Gang, see action.
When the guy sees search warrant, think calm down. The police wasted no time. They went straight to where the guns were hidden. Then did their investigation well. They were arrested and charged to court the next day for theft, illegal possession of firearms, and resisting arrest. And stolen cars were recovered.
Don't mean it. Our Nigeria police, if it happen,
with good laws,
proper funding,
training,
and cooperation,
if it happens.
The primary healthcare sector in Nigeria has been under a management approach aimed at providing healthcare services to communities. Since its conception in 1978, several countries have attempted implementing its program using different methods. What is the primary healthcare system in Nigeria like? Has it been able to fulfill its goal as a basis for universal health service or universal health care coverage? Come with us as we learn more.
Welcome to the physicians.
Today we shall be talking about a very interesting topic that is very, very close to my heart. It has to do with the primary health care sector. And we have a friend, a colleague who is also very passionate about this topic. Well, in the course of the program, you get to know her better. My name is Dr. Martina Agbere.
I am Dr. Memuna Yusuf Kadri. Remember, at the physicians, your health is our business.
Yes, the truth is today's topic is actually very
key.
It's very, very key.
Very key.
And it's taking us back to the grassroots.
Very.
When you hear primary health sector, primary health care, a lot of things come to mind, right?
Of course. The truth is that when you hear it, you are already thinking of a place where it has been abandoned, goats live there, people don't really visit, everybody is going more to the secondary or tertiary healthcare centers. It's like we don't even have well-equipped primary healthcare centers that people willingly want to go to, but we do know that is very pivotal to universal health coverage.
Don't just go away. Stay there. We'll be right back after this time out.
This is the physicians, where your health is our business. And of course, today we have our lovely guest, a friend, a colleague, a boom boom, you know, Sisi Mama, Dr. Orade Doherty, who is a pediatrician and, of course, a public health physician. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you. It's nice having you on our program. A pediatrician and also a public health advocate. What is primary health care?
So ideally, primary health care is the first step in the health sector. So it's the first opportunity for a patient to meet with the healthcare system. It is, in most cases in Nigeria, it can be practiced in a clinic, in the outpatient department of a hospital. But what is ideal really is community-based primary health care. So we're able to provide preventive care, we're able to provide curative care, and we're able to provide rehabilitative care. There's a proper definition of primary health care, and people think of it as essential health care based on scientifically sound and socially acceptable methods of providing universal health access to communities and individuals.
To communities. So in one word, it's actually restricted more to the communities.
So when we say
the rural communities?
When we say communities, we don't only think, we think of communities as populations.
Yeah.
So you can have communities of women, communities of men, communities of children, communities of, you can have geographic communities or descriptive communities. The most important thing is that people are receiving their first engagement with the healthcare system in a place that they can call a medical home, a place where they are comfortable to receive that care, a place where they are not worried about what's coming next.
So when you talk about primary health care, it means there is a secondary and there is also a tertiary.
Yes.
What is the difference? Is it for everybody?
So primary healthcare is for everybody. Remember that primary healthcare, I said, is the first engagement with the healthcare system. So there is a misconception in Nigeria, and I think we need to just address that right away. There's a misconception in Nigeria that primary healthcare is substandard care for poor people. That is absolutely wrong. Primary healthcare is for everybody. Every single one of us should have an annual medical exam. We should have annual pap smears, breast exams. Our children should get their immunizations regularly. They should be seen by their primary care physician or primary care practitioner, nurse, as often as there's a prescribed method for seeing children right from the time of in the newborn period. In fact, we date back to as early as pre-pregnancy care. There's a time to see people regularly. So by the time we start getting older, once we've hit adolescence and beyond, we now start seeing you on an annual basis. So primary health care is for everybody. Primary health care is for every single person, whether you're wealthy or you're poor or you're somewhere in between. Secondary health and primary health care focuses really on individuals. So primary health care, we focus on the person who is there with us.
So it's more like a personalized
personalized health care. Whereas secondary health care, you tend, unfortunately, and that's all, it's a misconception, and I'll drive it even more. In secondary health care, you have generally done all of the preventive care. You've generally provided, at the level of primary care, you provided preventive care, you provided screening, identification of a disease, maybe a disease condition, or identify that this person is healthy and is doing well. In primary health care, we screen for mental health issues, we screen for cancers, we screen for prevalent diseases in the community or in the country. But in secondary health care, usually a diagnosis has been made that can no longer be taken care of at the level of the primary health care practitioner.
This is very interesting. So it means the foundation is from the primary health care. It is only when they should know the boundary, the cut. It is when they can handle that they refer to the secondary.
So in addition to that, in primary health care, we don't only talk about prevention, curative, and rehabilitative. We talk about palliation. We talk about determinants of health, and this is where government becomes very important. So the determinants of health are also an important component of primary health care. So remember that when we're talking about primary health care, we're not only talking about the healthcare system, we're talking about the other things that lead to health, that determine health.
Like the psychosocial.
Yes, absolutely. Basic water and sanitation. Access to clean refuse disposal, waste disposal, noise pollution reduction, elimination of waste, appropriate access to facilities, so roads, appropriate geographic as well as financial access, so ability to pay. Those are the other things that form the components, and we call them, we think of them as determinants of healthcare. Poverty is an important contributor to health in Nigeria. So you have to remember that government has a role in alleviating the suffering of people by ensuring that no matter what, no matter how poor you are, vulnerable you are, whether you have an inability, a restriction of some sort, government should close those gaps.
So we'll be back after this time out. Just stay tuned. Don't go away.
The question is, when you fall sick, what is your first point of contact? Is it the primary healthcare center or the secondary healthcare center?
I think I'll go to the primary healthcare first, then to see if they can handle my case. Then if it's something more than then they can refer me to the secondary healthcare. So, but my first point of call will be my primary healthcare.
I think the fee will be a bit cheaper. And number two, I think from primary, if they diagnose your sickness, they might now refer you to secondary health care. That is the two main points that I will decide to use the primary health care.
I'm not okay if I'm feeling uncomfortable with my health. The first point of contact I'm supposed to go to should be a primary health care. Why? Because that's the first cadre of health institutions. So when they can't handle my case there, then I will be given a referral letter to a secondary, which is the normal thing to do.
The way from my own observation, the way I look at it, definitely somebody must go to a primary health care first. So that definitely from there they will have to find out exactly what kind of sickness or what kind of system of sickness you have.
Primary health care center, they take care of malaria, chickenpox, all those communicable diseases. And secondary health care center, they take care of, for example, like the ortho clinic. I think they are the secondary health care center, the eye clinic, because sometimes if you come to the hospital, you first of all go to the GOPC that looks like a primary health care center. After being there, they will now refer you to a specialist clinic. So that specialist clinic is looking like the secondary health care center.
Primary health care center is health institutions which are made for communities, that's local government. So if anybody is unwell, if anybody is ill in the community, they have each local government has its own primary health care. So, but when they can't handle the case of the person, they will refer such person to